Hi, in this video we will be installing VMware's vCenter Server Appliance or VCSA version 8. We will be doing this via the CLI rather than the user interface. So the first thing you need to do is download the VCSA version 8 installation media and mount it to a workstation. Once you mount it to a workstation, in my example here I have it on drive D. You need to navigate across to the VCSA CLI installer folder, templates, and then for an install, you want to go to install. And then you need to have a look at the embedded VCSA on ESXi installation template. This is if you want to install your VCSA onto an ESXi server. If you already have a vCenter server and you want to deploy an additional vCenter server to that, you can use the second template here. There are also other options if you want to use replication or clusters. Okay, so this is the template which we're going to use for the VCSA installation. It is essentially a bunch of configuration items which you would normally see in the wizard. We're just simply going to populate next to each item the required values. So here we're going to be installing a new vCenter server appliance onto an existing ESXi server. So in this section we need to specify all the ESXi server values that we'll be deploying the VCSA onto. And then we're going to choose whether we're going to use thin disk mode, our deployment option for the size, and then the name of the appliance, followed by some networking information, some OS information, and whether we're going to be using the SSO or not. So I have a file with this information pre-populated. However, I have specified some of my passwords in the file, so I'm not going to disclose that at this point in time. But you can simply omit the passwords from this configuration file if you would like to be prompted for them during the installation. However, I would like a fully unattended installation, so I'm going to populate the passwords into this file and then run the installation and then delete the file once the installation is completed. So the first thing we need to do is, if we're using Windows, we need to open a command prompt. And then we need to navigate to our mounted ISO into the VCSA CLI installer folder Win32. And once we're in there, we need to use the VCSA deploy option with the install option on the end, with a bunch of other options to specify what we're going to be doing. So in my example, this is the command that we're going to be using. We have specified here the pre-check only flag, which will make sure that no installation actually occurs. It's just going to check the prerequisites for us first, which is advised. And you'll notice at the end there is the full path to my configuration file, which I've copied from the mounted installation media onto my C drive and then modified. So we'll go ahead and run this now. So it's just checking all the prereqs and doing some validation checks for us as well, and giving us some outputs and things for us to read. And you'll remember that I did specify the passwords in my configuration, so I will not be prompted for those during this this configuration template deployment. So we're asking here for the thumbprint, so we're just going to accept that with a 1. And that should be the only input we require. Everything is succeeding so far. It pings the specified IP address for the appliance and makes sure that it's unreachable. So unreachable is actually a good thing here. We don't want to deploy a system onto an IP address that's already in use. Also checks all the standard stuff like the CPU memory, if there's no space in the data store, etc. So you'll notice here that it's actually errored, saying that the data store cannot be located, and to double check that the name is correct. So I'm going to go offline here and just check that that name of that data store is correct, and then we'll come back and we'll just rerun the same command once again. Okay, so I found the problem here. You'll notice on the ESXi server that I'm deploying this vCenter server to, my data store is ESX01. However, the output is telling me that it's trying to deploy to ESX1 as the data store name. So that's just a little typo in my configuration file, but it does highlight in real time here that the pre-checks are actually worth running. They only take a couple of seconds, and it'll save you a nightmare or save you a whole wasted amount of time down the line. So I'll go and change it in my configuration file now. Okay, so I've made that change, and we're just going to go up here on the command prompt, and we're going to execute the same command again. I'll just fast forward to save a bit of time here. Remembering the answer here is 1 for the thumbprint. Okay, so this time the checks have come back as successful. So we're going to run the same command once more, but this time we will remove the pre-check only option here. And we'll run that now, and that should be all we need to do, except, of course, the thumbprint question. Okay, so here we are back at the thumbprint question. We're going to answer 1 to this. I'm going to enter that, and I'm just going to speed up the video once again. Okay, so after checks have ran, it's now actually going to be deploying this virtual machine to the specified ESXi host, and we can see in the window behind the UI for the host client here, and you can see here the tasks and events. It's actually started to input the VApp from the media and create the VM, and it's actually completed those successfully. So the VM there is created, as you can see, and then up here on the in the UI, if we expand that out, we should be able to see the virtual machine here with the name that was provided in the template. Obviously, it hasn't finished deploying. You can see the status down here in the host client recent tasks window. So obviously we can't just start using this yet, but if we go back to the command prompt, we will get a status, and the status is actually pretty much in line with what we're seeing in the recent tasks pane there at the bottom of the host client. So I'll just let this skip through until something more interesting happens. Okay, we can now see that the transfer of all the files has been completed, and the VM has been powered on currently. And if we jump over to the VM in the ESXi host client, we can see that the VM has been powered on. And then back on the command prompt, we can see attempts being made to connect to the VCSA. So it's going to continue to try and connect until the VM is powered up properly and the services have started. And now we can see that the VCSA was contactable and the rest of the deployment is now running. Okay, and a few minutes later, the installation has been successful. So all we have to do now is log into the new VCSA and take a look. So we're going to be entering the credentials that we would have specified in the template file. Okay, and here it is. Here's our new VCSA deployed with almost no interaction whatsoever, all via the CLI. So we'll just make a few things in here. We'll make a data center, and we will add our host. We'll specify our host's root account details. Okay, just follow the wizard and add it into our new data center. We'll just make sure that it connects in and it's healthy, which it is. So we can also see our new vCenter server appliance deployed on that host which is actually managed by the vCenter server appliance itself. So thanks very much for watching, and if you have some free time, it would be worthwhile looking through the documentation, and you can find out what the new features are of vSphere 8 on my blog virtualg.uk.